Welcome to A Ride on the Outside. MMA is full of people on the inside, but what about the ones that watch from beyond? Welcome to the MMA Outsiders with Tom Albano and Zain Bando on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
All right, we are here for episode 89 of the MMA Outsiders, and no, your eyes are not fooling you. We've got a complete square here on the MMA Outsiders. I'm Tom Albano. Zain Bando unable to join us this week. We hope Zain is feeling better. Pat Danna, producer Pat, stepping up in his place as usual. Pat, thank you so much for joining us.
Always.
And of course, a big thank you joining us. You see them right here. Brett Cagle, Anthony Balester. Brett, you know well from Brett's Bets every week. But now Brett is going to have a show, which Anthony is going to be his co-host on. That's called Puncher's Chance. So I want to get them right out in the front. Puncher's Chance, Brett and Anthony, premieres this Wednesday, June 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So they share a time slot with us just on a different day. They've got all the combat sports talk as well. Brett, Anthony, if you guys want to talk about your show for a bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to thank Nick Morgeson for bringing us on. We've been running a podcast together for about 3 months now and have done about 20 to 25 shows. So we've got a little bit of a Rappaport going. And I am really excited about joining the network tomorrow and then officially the show coming out on Wednesday. So thank you guys for having us on. And I'm excited to talk some fights.
Yeah, 100% agree. I'm very, very excited for this opportunity. I'm ready to get started. We're going to be different than every other MMA podcast. We're going to be also giving gambling advice and trying to help MMA fans make some money along the way.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to tune in, guys. It's going to be a really fun show. Obviously, you guys have the gambling aspects. Brett, I mean, you always have that every week with Brett's Bets,
Yeah.
but it's time for Brett's Bets to go to the extreme with this show now. See how else.
The extended version of it.
An extended version, yes. Let's get all of our business out of the way. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Just past 770 subscribers. We are continuing that climb to the magical 1,000. And then, of course, you can listen to the MMA Outsiders wherever you get your podcasts, Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so much more. And, of course, you can even have the audio version with YouTube Premium if you subscribe to that. So you don't have to see any of our ugly mugs if you have that, or if you just go to one of those audio-only platforms. And if you are on those audio-only platforms, again, make sure to go to youtube.com/ETB Network for the video feed. Hit subscribe. Don't forget to go to etbpodcast.com for more content from the ETB Network. And, of course, Zain and his crew over in the blogging section, just cranking out blogs left and right. Of course, Brett, you are a big contributor to that blogging section as well every week with your picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Zain's really a very good editor and someone that really looks at our articles, with extreme caution and stuff. And I enjoy writing articles for ETB as well.
Of course. So obviously, Brett, with his experience over at Fan of Sports, radio host for Sportstown Chicago, and of course, as I mentioned before, you can catch Brett and Anthony now on Puncher's Chance, debuting Wednesday. There we go. Debuting Wednesday. Everything seems to be a little bit of a 1 second delay on my end, but oh well. To my right, Pat Danna, producer Pat, journalist over at Combat Sports UK. And you can follow him at Pat Danna MMA. And then I am Tom Albano, contributor at MMA News, Fan-Sided MMA, working alongside the PFL. I think I had one of the busiest weekends of my life last week doing the Salt Lake City card on Friday night and then getting up to do Bellator on Saturday, as well as, of course, covering the UFC card. And then I'm going to, the train does not slow down because Friday night we have Sioux Falls right before UFC 303. You can follow me on social media at Thomas J. Albano. And then, of course, Anthony, what is your social media if anybody wants to follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me at all social media accounts at Balester555 That's my name on all social media accounts. If you love sports, MMA, football, give me a follow, and you will definitely be happy with the content you'll see.
And then, of course, Brett, you can follow at Brett_Cagle. And then, of course, I can't forget, I would be very remiss, and people would be very pissed if I did not mention that the MMA Outsiders, in addition to the rest of the Empty the Bench Network, is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together, with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, ripping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. Of course, we were there all NBA playoffs long, and we will have some additional content for Playback coming your way very soon. All right, let's get right into the show, guys. The main topic is this Saturday's UFC pay-per-view card, a card unlike what it was supposed to be. You look at the card as is now versus what it was supposed to be, two completely different cards. We'll get into all that, and I kind of echo the sentiment that Zain was talking about last week. You know, this is a card now that if you're a hardcore MMA fan, you still love this card. You may even love this card even more. If you're a casual fan or a Conor McGregor fan, maybe not so much. Main event, light heavyweight title on the line, Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka 2. This is not the first time that these two have had to step up for a main event on short notice. They were supposed to be the co-headliner to the last MSG card, and then when John Jones had the pec injury, those two got elevated to the main event. We saw Alex Pereira take the UFC 300 main event on short notice. This fight here, taking on Yuri Prochazka. So, guys, just quickly, and actually, let's start with Anthony. Let's start with Anthony and go to Brett because you two are the guests here. What are your thoughts heading into this fight? Who do you see having the advantage, especially both guys coming in on such short notice?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great fight. I love this main event better. Honestly, I think the best part of this fight is before the bell even rings. The stare down of this is going to be unbelievable. Two scary guys. I love this matchup stylistically. Yuri Prochazka is a unique striker. He's definitely different than any other striker. Alex Pereira just likes to walk you down, and once he touches you, you basically die. No pun intended. But it's definitely going to be, I think, a better matchup than the first matchup. I think Yuri Prochazka is going to be more recovered from his injury. I think the last fight was his first fight coming back. I think Alex Pereira also will be better because I think his grappling and his overall MMA game improves at each and every fight. So I think it's going to be the best version of these two. And I can't wait to see who comes on top. Right now, I'm going to go with Alex Pereira. I never bet against him. I think anytime he steps in the octagon, I think he's got a chance to knock that person out, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah, and he already did it before. I really like this matchup. I don't see it going the distance yet again. This one's pretty close, and Alex isn't even a 2-1 favorite. So, yeah, I really like this one, and I think Alex probably gets it done by knockout as well.
I guess I'll go next. So I was there the first time these guys fought. I actually got a really nice video of the finish with those controversial elbows that Pereira landed to Yuri's head. So it's a tough one for me because watching that first fight, it really felt like Yuri was on the verge of potentially finishing Alex before the finishing sequence itself. And the way the fight ended, the left hook that Alex landed rocked him and everything, but the elbows and the way that ended, I feel like that's so one of a kind. You don't see that kind of finish again. So I feel like this might be a completely different fight. I definitely don't see it going the distance. Maybe a little bit longer, maybe another round. Maybe it's round 4, but I could see it ending in round 3, but I think I might end up picking Yuri here. I'm still not 100% confident, not 100% sure, but I think I'm leaning towards Yuri so far.
This fight, I'm completely excited for this fight. I'm not as excited for the card as it was before, but I am completely, really excited for this fight. I love both of these guys, and heading into their first fight, I was concerned because Pereira had just been knocked out by Israel Adesanya. So I said, moving up to light heavyweight, taking on somebody that power like Yuri Prohaska has. I didn't know how Alex Pereira was going to hold up, even though he had the background with glory kickboxing. And I mean, I love Yuri, but that first fight, yeah, Yuri looked like he was closing in on Alex, but Alex he has that power that he can change a dime. And Alex Pereira is the kind of, and he's got, as much as he had that knockout loss against Izzy, he's also got a chin on him. And I don't think you can insult Alex and his chin for that knockout when he's just knocked out Yuri Prohaska back in November. I'm wondering how the short notice nature of this fight is playing in, because Alex is used to this. Yeah. Yuri, I don't remember necessarily had a short notice fight.
I know he was fighting in a lot of those tournaments in Ryzen, so he could have been fighting on, somewhat short notice. I don't think those were same night tournaments, but like you were saying, Alex does have experience, fighting quickly back to back in Glory. So I think that it favors him on short notice.
You are right, Brett. Considering the Glory experience, considering the Ryzen experience, all those short nature, I guess you can say short notice nature bouts, those are tournaments, which is a completely different beast, but I am leaning to Alex in this one. I think like Pat, this fight's going to end up a little longer. I think it's going to go to the later stages. It could end up in the later stages. Second, I could be in the third, but I think Alex Pereira is going to get it done, and I finishes Yuri again and retains the title.
Do you guys think that he tries to take this fight to the ground at all? Yuri?
I think he would be smart to do that. I think he would be smart to do that.
I think he'll definitely attempt it personally.
Will he? I don't know.
I mean, he did last time. The entire first round, he was on top of Alex, and then he was shooting for a takedown when he got hurt in the second round. So I think there's actually a higher likelihood than people think going in that Yuri might come out and just wrestle.
Again, will he, though? I really don't know.
It'd be an interesting game plan.
We'll find out for sure.
Yeah.
Co-main event. This one completely on short. Neither two of these guys were supposed to be on this card, but now they got suddenly booked on short notice. Brian Ortega, the former two-time title challenger, is going to take on the rising prospect in Diego Lopez. And, say what you will about Brian Ortega, the fact that he's had 2 title shots, the fact he might be on a downward trend. I think if Lopez wins this fight and finishes like I think he's going to, and second round finish isn't out of the question, I think this is opening up big doors for Lopez.
I mean, obviously it would open some doors for Lopez if he can get a finish the way he's been. I mean, Ortega is a guy that's fought for the title multiple times. Lopez hasn't fought a former title challenger yet, so it puts everything in kind of a weird situation where Lopez would be beating a top 5 guy that's fought for the title before. He's on a big win streak. It kind of just shoots him right up into the potential top of the contenders list. But either way, he'd have to wait behind Max and Volk, who are both ready to fight for the title. So that's the problem, is it makes the situation weird. Because is there a chance he jumps Max or Volk? No, I don't think so, in my opinion. I know the hype is getting big. I know, everyone loves to see Diego Lopez win, finish fights. But even if he finishes Ortega, I can't see him jumping Max or Volk, meaning that he'd probably have to fight again. And maybe he could end up fighting the winner of Movsar Aljo. Maybe that rematch with Movsar that he wants, maybe something like that. I know that's a fight that's been talked about a bit, but I just don't think he could get a title shot off of this fight. He could very well be put at the top of the conversation, though. But then for Ortega, this fight doesn't really matter for him because he just said he's moving up to 155 regardless of if he wins or if he loses. So this fight doesn't even matter for his featherweight run because it's basically over after this, according to him.
Yeah, and I like Diego Lopez in this matchup. 5'11" compared to 5'8". On the feet, I think he's going to have a significant advantage. Now, when it comes to the grappling, it's going to be very interesting, and I can't wait for these jiu-jitsu exchanges between the two because obviously Brian Ortega is a high-level black belt, and Diego Lopez has pulled off some crazy submissions, even almost submitting Mosfar Evloev in his debut. So I'm really excited for this one. As Tom mentioned before, the top heaviness of the card with Conor McGregor might have been a little better for the casual fans, but I feel like they really added depth with this matchup. it was definitely needed when you put in the new main event as well. And I'm just so excited for this weekend, and this matchup is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and I, echo everything Patrick said. I agree everything he said. In normal circumstances, if Diego Lopez goes out and beats a guy like Brian Ortega, it does warrant title consideration. But the division isn't quite a weird spot. Volk is definitely very warranted. Holloway's definitely very warranted. You got Aljamain Sterling obviously out there as well. But like you said, if he wins this fight, I would love to see him and Mozart fight a rematch. Diego Lopez came in short notice and almost won that fight. And if he could come in on short notice again and beat a Brian Ortega, I mean, what more can you say about Diego Lopez?
Yeah.
Well said.
Would
Anthony,
you guys like to see him fight Volkanovski potentially with a win?
Diego? No.
Yeah.
That might be too much of a jump.
I can't even say it would be a jump going from Ortega to Volkanovski. I just think it would be so unnecessary. It's one of those things the UFC does that kind of would like shoot themselves in the foot, where they have a lot of contenders, but when you match up a couple of them against each other, you end up losing those names. And then down the line, it looks worse.
Pat, I mean, look what they did with Paige Van Zant's run.
Yeah.
And now she's in Power Slap.
Yeah.
Volkanovski's a little different, though. He's a former champion. And he's got to prove that he can stay at that elite level still, He's been trained by his last two opponents and both dangerous guys. I think if Diego goes out and gets another finish this weekend, that would be his 23rd finish in his career. So, I want to see if Volk can, still hang with these dangerous, tough contenders, honestly.
I agree, but I stick with the opinion of I don't want to see Volk fight till end of this year, if not start of next year.
Definitely on time.
100%.
You saw the reports of him trying to get in there back at 303. I get his comments about, he needs to be in there, but that causes me a lot of concern for his future.
Definitely.
It should.
And to the point I was going to make before with Anthony, that fight that Diego Lopez had in his debut against Diego, he could have, some people might say he won that fight.
Based on damage, he may have.
So
I feel like Mosfar controlled him for a significant amount of that fight, but Diego was closer to finishing it.
So I wasn't necessarily saying that Lopez should get a title shot next, but I think if he wins this fight, you are looking at somebody within that top 5 range that he could be fighting next. This fight was supposed to be Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. It has now changed to this is a Lemony Snicket's novel or movie, a series of unfortunate events. Anthony Smith, Roman Dolziz, on days' notice.
It's disgusting to see what we were supposed to get and what we ended up getting. I am outraged. I am upset. I'm very displeased with this matchup. Why? Whose idea was it? And really? I just don't understand it. I do not understand it. I mean, I asked Tom this before we started recording. Does Roman move up permanently? Is this a one-off just to save the fight, save the card? I mean, the amount of pullouts we had in this fight and the unfortunate nature of it is just crazy. That I guess I should be happy that there's still something on, but at the same time, like, what does this fight do for anyone? Like, it doesn't upgrade Smith at light heavyweight, right? Roman, if he doesn't move up permanently, what does this fight do? It does nothing for either of them. So if he's moving up permanently and we got that confirmation going into the fight, I'll be like, cool. All right. Like that's what's happening. Like he's trying to make a run at light heavyweight. But other than that, like if he goes back down to middleweight after this fight, I don't see a reason that this is even necessary.
Yeah, I mean, he's a massive 185-pound prospect, and I don't know how difficult it was for him to make that weight limit, but he's going to be able to come in here, basically at full strength. And I'm very interested to see what he brings to the light heavyweight division. In that loss to Marvin Vettori at middleweight, I thought he could have grappled a little bit more in that fight and maybe secured a victory. But he's probably going to stand and trade here with Anthony Smith, which kind of means that it's going to be the same matchup that he just faced with Vitor Petrino. Petrino tried to walk him down and come at him and eventually tried to take down and left his neck open. I'm really interested to see if Anthony Smith's experience is going to play out once again, and if he can keep this going. I'm more interested in this than I guess some people are, but it's definitely not the fight that we were promised. That's for sure.
Definitely not the fight we were promised.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is this too short of a notice? Because for Roman Dolziz, like I said, this is just days' notice. Is this going to be too much for him to overcome? I don't think so, only because I feel like he has the ability to damage Anthony Smith. So I'm going to stick with Roman in this one.
Oh yeah, he's got knockout power, that's for sure.
Yeah, he definitely has power, and that's the big difference maker in this fight. I think is actually no, not even necessarily the power. The speed is what I'm interested in, because Roman's a slow middleweight, right? Like, he's not very athletic, throws his punches slower. He's not going to be the slower guy in this fight, I think. I could be wrong, but he should probably be quicker than Anthony Smith. And if he is, I want to see what that looks like, and I want to see if he can really get in range and land some of that power and show off the speed he could have at light heavyweight.
Like 7 years ago, Anthony Smith was fast at light heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
6-7 years ago, I think Smith beats Dolidze pretty handily, but this is a completely different Anthony Smith at this point.
What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, and honestly, when I said I like the fights better, I was only talking about the main event and the co-main event. This fight is definitely a downgrade. But honestly, though, I think depending on how this fight goes for Roman Dolunze, I think that will determine whether if he stays at this division or not. If he wins, he's definitely going to stay at light heavyweight, because that's going to put him right in the top 10. He's definitely going to get another top 10 fighter right after. But if Anthony Smith goes out there and finishes them in the first or second round, I think Dolunze would have no choice but to go back down to 185. And it's just unfortunate for Dolunze. He hasn't looked the same since the Jack Hermanson fight. Each fight, it seems to get worse and worse for him. So, maybe that weight cut is starting to add up. And we know as fighters tend to get older, they tend to move up in weight classes because the weight cut just becomes too much to bear.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And he's not young. I mean, he is 35, so he could have made the decision that, all right, I'm 35 years old. I want to fight for a title. Middleweight hasn't been going great. Let me stop cutting as much weight and see how I feel up at 205. And if that's the move, I mean, all respect to him. I definitely, I'm interested in seeing him at light heavyweight. I just want to know that that's what this is going in. Because if this is just a one-off, I really, I don't know. It just doesn't interest me anywhere near as much.
So, Pat, who do you favor in this fight?
It's a tough one. I mean, I feel like it's going to be a pretty sloppy fight, honestly. It's not going to look very visually good, from a technical standpoint. But I think I got Roman. I want to say I think Dolidze takes him out. He's too good to be subbed by Anthony Smith potentially. I think he does have a really good ground game, and I don't think Smith subs him. And I want to favor him on the feet at this point in their careers. So I'm gonna say Roman for this one, by decision. I'll say. Who do you got?
I want to see what Roman looks like at the scale in the end of the week. I want to see what his body's looking like at the new weight class, but. He's got big power, man. And if he doesn't try to take that fight to the ground, I thought Vitor Petrino was going to knock Anthony Smith out eventually. He was getting inside real well and engaging distance. But, Roman's got power just like that. And if he can get inside on Smith and not do something, stupid and leave his neck out there on a takedown, then, I think that he's going to have a chance to finish Anthony Smith on the feet.
I tend to agree.
So I think I'm gonna go with Anthony Smith in this one. I think he's a veteran. He's used to this weight class. I think he's gonna be too much. I think he's gonna outstrike Dolunze. Dolunze, I think, does have the power and will land some effective strikes and cause some damage. But I think Smith will outstrike him, and I'm gonna go Anthony Smith by decision.
I'm gonna stick with what I said before. I think Roman still has the power enough that he can damage Smith. Regardless of his speed or whatnot, regardless of the move up in weight, I'm going to go with Roman by second round finish.
Wow. Okay. Little Roman finish action.
I like it.
I like it too.
Anthony's going to prove us all wrong.
Yeah, right.
Now, women's fight.
Nope.
We are good to go. Okay. Moving on now. Maribona Silva, Macy Chiasson. Brett, take it away.
Oh, with Myro Bueno Silva and Macy Chase. You know, I think that Myro Bueno Silva is a very aggressive girl, and I like her in this matchup. Macy Chiasson is good striking. Myro Bueno Silva can also get it done on the ground. I think she's probably more aggressive. This is a really close fight, and the odds makers have it right now. I'm going to take Myro Bueno Silva, though. I like her experience and the ability to finish the fight standing and on the ground. What do you think, Pat?
Anthony?
Or Anthony?
Who are we going
I
to?
can take it. So yeah, I honestly I agree with everything Brett said. I think Bruno Silva is the better grappler. I think she's going to take this fight to the ground. I think she's going to control the fight. And again, I have another win for Bruno Silva by decision.
I'm in a tough spot with this fight. I like Macy a lot, and I think she's underrated at this point in her career. She had close losses, and I mean most of her losses she was putting up a good fight. They were close fights. Bueno Silva just left such a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths after her last fight. It was a very disappointing performance. And if you look at her wins, they're really not that impressive. Like, just to be honest, the Holly Holm one is the one that stands out, but it's not even a win anymore because she did test positive after it. Whether that played an impact on the fight or not is a different conversation. But I think I actually like Macy by decision here. I think she's just more well-rounded. I think she could keep the fight on the feet if she wants. I think on the ground she can even win some of those grappling exchanges, and I think she'll just be able to outclass Bueno Silva for 15 minutes.
I agree. I think that Macy, maybe she doesn't have the kind of hype around her that she had entering the UFC, but like you kind of said, Pat, Bueno Silva has left some better taste in people's mouths with some of her performances. I still think Chiasson is a more well-rounded fighter and the one with still plenty of hype and potential around her. So I agree with Pat giving Macy by decision. And then one other fight to get to with this main card. This is a highly anticipated one. It's Ian Gary looking to continue his undefeated rise against the Bellator veteran in his second UFC fight, Michael Venom Page. Pat, you want to start this one?
I'd love to. So this fight is a striker's delight. It's a very technical striking match. It should play out just as the way it seems on paper. The thing is, Michael Venom Page is a weird technical striker. He's a showman, That's the easiest way to put it. And when it comes to Michael Page fights, you never really know what you're going to see out of him. He's very much a wild card, but I actually have a feeling that he's going to take the fight to Gary here. He's going to come out a little bit different than he has in the past. And I actually think Michael Page beats Ian Gary here. I'm going to go with a decision for now, but I could see a world where Gary gets caught and knocked out.
I want to believe what Pat is saying about a Michael Venom Page knockout because that's what we're so used to seeing with MVP. My issue is, both of these guys kind of need a big performance. Ian Gary, his last couple of fights against Jeff Neal and Neil Magny he hasn't looked great. Michael Venom Page, his fight with Kevin Holland, the debut fight with the UFC, wasn't the best. And I think that's what the UFC is hoping, putting these two together. One of them is going to get an explosive knockout on the other. That said, I feel like this is just going to end up, they want this to be a banger to start the main card. I feel like this is just going to end in some sort of weird grapple fest against the fence. And if that happens, I'm siding with Ian Gary by decision.
Yeah, I definitely understand that.
I know your cause for concern there, Tom, and I think it's valid. You have two technical kickboxers here that both kind of do the same thing. They want to counter their opponents, have them coming in, and then catch them with big shots. So, in the past, when we've seen matchups like this with two counter strikers, sometimes there's lulls in action, and it's not necessarily the fan-friendly fight that we expect. So, something that really sticks out to me is the youth of Gary in this one. He's 26 going against Michael Venom Page, who obviously has a wealth of experience being, a staple of Bellator, but Ian Gary's going to be 11 years younger and is a very similar fighter to Michael Venom Page. So I'm going to side with you in this one, Tom, and I'm going to take Ian Gary.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Ian Gary as well. I think he's in the prime of his career. I think he's got future title holder written all over him. Michael Venom Page is definitely an exciting striker. I just think, he hasn't beat anybody on the level of Ian Gary. This fight can be very boring. Stylistically, they're very similar. I wish Ian Gary would have got his wish. I would have loved to see him get the Colby Covington fight. That would have been a great matchup to see how he look against a grappler. But we got him against Michael Venom Page, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think we're either going to get a great, exciting, entertaining striking match, or we're going to get a very boring, low-output matchup. But I'm going to side with Gary because I think him and Rachmanov are the future of that division.
So what's funny is Gary was apparently supposed to fight Colby Covington, and basically the story at this point from most sides is that Covington has rejected the fight, considering he basically called Gary a nobody. I don't know if that's the exact word that I would want to use from Colby Covington, considering his last performance against Leon Edwards, but who am I to say?
Gary's a big, strong kid. It'd be real hard for him to take him down. I mean, he had trouble taking Leon down, and those attempts didn't look too great. I know that maybe he was out of repetition and wasn't in the gym, but practicing that wrestling. But Ian Gary's going to be hard to take down.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move off of UFC, guys. Let's go over to the PFL. We got Sioux Falls, South Dakota this week. We've got the welterweights and the featherweights. It's time to officially put a bow on the regular season, move on to the playoffs. Your main event this week is the 2022 featherweight champion, Brendan Loughnane, the infamous Dana White Contender Series cut, taking on Justin Gonzalez, with Loughnane looking to get back into the postseason after Jesus Pinedo kind of ruined things for him last year.
Yeah, and Loughnane's coming off a big knockout win. He needed that win in his last fight. He needed a big win like that, a statement win after Pinedo kind of pulled off that massive upset of him, and people weren't sure where exactly he was mentally, just in general in the sport anymore. And it was good to see him get back in, get a massive win. I think the stoppage was a little weird in that one. I think a lot of people were a little 50-50-ish on that one, but still an impressive win regardless. Now he gets Justin Gonzalez, who's coming off his own knockout loss in the first round. And I mean, I think this is just a fight that should easily push Loughnane into the playoffs. I think Justin Gonzalez is good. I think I rate him more. I think I rate him more high, if that makes sense. Higher than a lot of other people do. I think he's pretty good. He has the win over Kai Kamaka. He lost to Pico. I think he's only lost to some really solid guys in some tough matchups, and I still think Loughnane should clear him in this fight for sure.
What do you think, Brett?
I love covering the PFL, and I was at Brendan Loughnane's last fight against Pedro Carvalho. You mentioned the controversial stoppage there. Brendan Loughnane was in full control of that fight for as long as the fight lasted. Now, Pedro did have his ankle and tried to kind of ankle pick him, which sent Brendan falling as the fight stopped, which was very weird looking on television. But Brendan Loughnane's had some very advantageous matchups, in my opinion, in the regular season to get him into this postseason. He is one of the best fighters in all PFL, and I think that they like having him in the playoffs, and he brings in views. So I think that Brendan Loughnane is going to get this fight done, and I got him by decision. I think his volume on the feet is going to be too much for Justin Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brendan Loughnane as well. I just think he's too much of a superior fighter. Obviously, Justin Gonzalez is someone you're going to have to respect every time he steps into the ring. But I'm going to go with Brendan Loughnane on this one.
I think we're all in agreement. Pat said, Brendan Loughnane needed a big performance last time out. He got that, and he's capable of getting a big performance again with an opponent like Justin Gonzalez. And hopefully, for his sake, he gets a good enough seed with the PFL featherweight playoffs, and he can get back there and maybe reclaim the crown and be a two-time champion. All right, co-main event. You got Logan Storley, former interim Bellator champion, on short notice taking on Luka Paquet. This was supposed to be Laureano Strapoli, but he is now officially out. And, considering the track record of what's happened with him, maybe not going to be invited back next season.
Yeah, I would probably count on him not being back. And also, I'm just going to say this as plain and simple as possible. I don't think Poklet belongs in there with a guy like Logan Storley.
Nah.
Not that Poklet is bad by any means. I mean, he's on a pretty long win streak. But
you know the words of Corey Anderson, Pat. There are levels in this game.
There are, and that's my worry, is that just Poklet's solid. He beat Roman Feraldo last time out, he was a decently well-known guy. He shouldn't be in this fight. Logan Storley coming off a loss in his hometown. I mean, I don't see how Storley loses this fight. I'm confident enough to say that I think Storley wins this fight like 9 out of 10 times, maybe even all 10. And I think he just dominates, honestly. They put him in a fight against Starpoli, who I don't think should have ever been in a cage with Storley in the first place, and then they get a replacement that I don't think should be in the cage with Storley. So I feel the same way about this as I did with the Starpoli fight. Poklet's a little bit more of a question mark, so I guess there is the question of, how legit is he? Can he pull off the upset? But give me Storley by submission in round 2.
Yeah, I'm going to take Logan Storley by decision in this one. Pat, we were at his last fight in Sioux Falls, obviously not his last contest, but his last fight in front of his hometown fans. And they were really behind him, and they had a really raucous atmosphere there at the Sanford Pentagon. I got Logan Storley in this one. I think the wrestling's too much. He's going to take him down at will, in my opinion, and I think he's going to grind out a decision victory.
Yeah, I got Logan Storley too. I think we're all going to agree on this. I think this is going to be a pretty one-sided matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if Storley goes out there and outstrikes him as well. He's going to out-grapple him, I think. He's going to get an all-around victory. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get the finish, but I'm going to play it safe and go Storley by decision as well.
I'm going to go with Storley by decision as well. I think, this is going to be a completely one-sided WrestleFest. Basically, Logan Storley is just going to take complete control, take Poklet down at will, hold him up against the cage at will, slam him down at will. He is going to prevent any sort of transitions. This is going to be a Logan Storley showcase. And by the way, for completion's sake, Zain actually did text me his picks for the main cards for both shows. He is going Pereira by second round knockout, Lopez by decision, Smith by third round knockout, Bueno Silva by decision. What are you on? Zain, what are you smoking? He's going with Ian Gary first round knockout.
Could happen.
And Joe Piper by knockout. And he's taking Lognane and Storley as well.
Okay.
All right. Let's go over to a couple of news stories that were going around the headlines this week. So we now know what the true injury of what Conor McGregor had that has left him out of UFC 303. It is a broken toe. I know Chael Sonnen had come out and was being his baity self saying, oh, I heard he was in rehab. And so Conor decides to take a photo of his really mangled toe and put it on social media. Look, you guys have probably all seen the comments that have gone his way from, fans and media and fighters alike. On one hand, yeah, this is a bit of just desserts. This is a bit of medicine from the times when Aldo pulled out with injury and Conor went after him and RDA pulled out, showcasing the actual injury that he had, and McGregor went after him as well. So people are saying, because RDA was actually one of the people that went after McGregor. So you can say, okay, maybe this is just karma. On the other hand, you guys all saw the injury, that the bruise that was going all over that toe. And, I thought back to, pro wrestling fans will know, in 2022 when Cody Rhodes fought in that match and he had the torn pec and you saw all the bruising around this area. So I don't know one doctor that was going to clear him with that toe.
I don't know if I agree to that extent. I think he definitely could have been cleared. I don't think it would have been smart, his big return, his big comeback, fighting with a big injury like that. Yeah. I think there's a chance he could have been cleared, but I don't think it would have been in his best interest. I don't think it would have been a good move for him at all.
And And keep in mind that this is the same leg that he broke a few years ago.
Yes,
Dustin.
exactly.
So, I mean, you're looking at the chance that if, another injury to that leg, and you're looking basically at a career ender.
At the same time, though, guys, this is the same guy who fought Chad Mendes with a torn ACL. So, I mean, you're not telling me that he was in more pain this weekend he would have been than he was against Chad Mendes when he could barely, do some of those lateral movements and explosive stuff. So, I just don't think that Conor is the tough. I don't think he's as tough as he used to be. I think that kind of the money and all this stuff is kind of softened him a little bit to a degree. Now, do I think he was legitimately injured? Yes. But I also think that the Conor before he won the title would have taken this fight regardless.
I agree, Brett, and I feel like you kind of already said it. You got to type the words out of me. When Conor fought Chad Mendes, that was a Conor who constantly kept active. That was a Conor who was hungry and chasing after the featherweight title. Mm-hmm. This is not that Conor. This is a Conor who hasn't fought in 3 years. This is a Conor who is an on-again, off-again fighter at this point and has been that way ever since the money boxing match with Floyd Mayweather. So, it's two completely different Conors that we're dealing with now.
And I think we also got to remember, too, this may be the first fight where McGregor's career is on the line here. If he goes out in there and Chandler, finishes him early and he doesn't look good, we're probably not seeing McGregor get in the UFC. So he wants to make sure he's fully healthy because this is the most important fight of his career. If he wins this fight, it opens up a lot of doors. Does he fight Charles Oliveira at 170? There's so many other options that he could go from here, but with a loss that pretty much takes away all those options, and I think that was a deciding factor in this as well.
That too, I agree. So going over now, Ryan Garcia. You guys are going to be covering a lot of boxing on your show, and just Brett and Anthony, I need to get your thoughts on just the madness that has happened with this man. The 1 year ban from the New York State Athletic Commission, the overturning of the win to a no contest against Devin Haney, him announcing his retirement and then saying, "Oh, I'm just retiring until the suspension ends." This teasing he's going to go to UFC. If Saudi Arabia offers a fight, they'll look past, the suspension and have him fight there, but we don't know what the hell's going on with him. And Haney's basically threatening somehow more litigation than was already coming out there. What the hell has happened here?
Well, I think there's kind of been some corrective action. Obviously, you can't sit there and do steroids. I thought that the 1 year suspension could have been even maybe a 2 year suspension. When you see what they handed down to Nick Diaz in the past 5 years for marijuana, this is a guy who, after the fight, would tweet things like, "I love steroids" and things like that. So he's kind of openly mocking the athletic commission to an extent. And this, to me, is kind of a slap on the wrist. The financial penalties in this one, I heard that he had to forfeit over $1.3 million back to Oscar De La Hoya in this one.
Yep.
That's massive. Now, he's going to have to fight Devin Haney again at some point or have some type of high-profile match, to set himself up for the rest of his life if he's sitting here having to give back, a tenth of his purse. So I think that's a big deal. Now, does he go to Saudi Arabia? Does he go to Japan? Ryzen will probably look over it too. We've seen them talk with Pacquiao, and Floyd's fought over there in the past as well. There are avenues for him to get paid in certain spots, but if he goes and does that, will that anger the athletic commissions here in the United States and the boxing promoters here? I don't know. It's a really political game, and I think that them overturning the win to a no contest was the right decision, though, in the end.
It's a real political game, but I will add, Brett, something that Zain and I have talked about the past couple of weeks, especially that story last week about the commission in Saudi Arabia trying to buy all the boxing promotions. Right now, it seems like Saudi Arabia has a lot of that political power in the boxing world.
Yeah, they do. They really do. And they're putting shows on in the United States, with
the Terrence Crawford fight, starting with that. Yeah. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, and the reason why Saudi Arabia is doing that is because they're the only country that has the money to just throw it all away. It does. Boxing is the type of sport to where it's not like the UFC. Whether the card does good or not, they don't care. They just try to put on these cards, and it doesn't matter if it's a flop or not. And that's why Saudi Arabia stepped in to try to maybe potentially save boxing. But this whole Ryan Garcia thing is definitely a mess. What a roller coaster he's been on. For him to lose against Tank Davis and then come back and be on the top of the world again after being Devin Haney, and then to find out that he cheated his way through it. It's definitely a disaster. Honestly, I think his best case scenario is just take a year off, let the dust settle, take all the, whatever you have to do legally, get that all taken care of, and rematch Devin Haney in the year. No matter what Devin Haney says, he's going to have to rematch. He could do all the legal stuff that he wants. At the end of the day, the film's there, and anybody could go on YouTube and watch him lose. And the only way he's going to rectify that is to go out there and rematch Garcia and win. So I think they should take a year off and rematch in a year. Make sure he does come in at that weight. Make sure he knows steroids. And, I think that would be a huge mega fight and would pay both fighters quite handsomely.
Pat, what do you think?
I tend to agree that I feel like in order to save his image a little bit, that Haney probably will have to fight Garcia again, despite him saying, I won't fight him. I think he might have to just to save image, because there's not many guys on that level that he can fight at the moment that are going to save his image the way that just simply rematching Garcia would. It's going to be a big mark on his record. And I mean, obviously he has to worry about Garcia taking the fight seriously and everything, but I agree with that for sure. This whole situation, I don't even know what to make of it anymore. I don't think Garcia is actually going to retire, obviously. I think
he's already walked it back. He already said, it's just till the suspension ends. So it means you're taking the suspension.
Exactly. So he's just going to take the suspension, and I think he'll move on from there. I think, you know what, if I had to make a bet, I'd say Garcia is in a bigger fight his next fight than Haney is.
I like that prediction.
I do too. And it's because you think about what could have been, guys, because Garcia has basically gone off of his rocker. And you'd think if he had actually made weight for this fight, he would have been the WBC lightweight champion instead of now Devin Haney. News breaking before hours before we started coming on here that Devin Haney's now the champion in recess, and he's technically not the WBC lightweight champion anymore because, like as Brett said, the politics of boxing, or as where is it? As Zain and I always like to say, boxing gets in its own way.
That's a nice.
So, if you guys have permission to borrow this banner for your show, if you'd like. But yeah, it's kind of sad, and I hope Ryan Garcia, I think that Saudi Arabia is going to make him, an offer he can't refuse, and he goes over there and fights. But I just hope with Ryan Garcia, he kind of, takes care of business, kind of like what Brett and Anthony were saying, takes care of business, including legal business. Maybe even gets a little bit of the help that he needs mentally and gets into the right mental frame again, and it becomes the Ryan Garcia of old. All right, so one other news story to get before we do the recaps. So Jake Paul obviously needs to stay busy now that the Mike Tyson fight is going to be in November. In steps Mike Perry. Mike Perry spending all this time in bare knuckle. He gets his wish. He's going to step in on short notice. We are still going to have a fight on July 20th. I don't think this is going to be on Netflix, though, is it?
Don't ask me. I'm actually not sure.
I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
But what do you guys make of this kind of fight here?
With boxing gloves, I don't really know what to make of it. I think in BKFC, Mike Perry's toughness just is so glaring to why he's winning these fights. He's just he can take the punishment. He's very tough, and he can take what you give and then give back more. So when you're talking about boxing, when you got gloves on and this sort of thing, he's not the most technical boxer. We saw him in the UFC get pieced up by Vicente Luque. I think that Michael Venom Page also would have outclassed him if it was a boxing match and not a bare knuckle boxing match. So, I don't think that Jake Paul here is biting off more than he can chew, like some people think. I think he's the bigger guy. I think he's going to have probably 20 pounds on Mike Perry and 3 inches as well, especially if he comes in the same shape we saw him looking at when he was going to fight Mike Tyson. So I like Jake Paul in this one. I think he's a very smart business guy, and I don't think that he loses this fight, even though, Mike Perry is going to bring along a lot of UFC fans to watch this one.
Anthony,
sorry.
Go ahead. No, Pat, go ahead.
I think Perry is going to bring the fight to Paul. I think it's going to be entertaining. I don't think he wins. like you said, the difference between bare knuckle boxing and boxing, even though it's just a glove, it's a lot. It's a lot of the technical nature of it, and Perry doesn't have that. Doesn't have the technical nature. He brawls, and I don't see Paul being dumb enough to get into a brawl with him for at least a long period of time. Maybe for short periods of time, they'll brawl in there a bit, but over an extended period of time that can actually give Perry a legit shot to win, I don't see him brawling.
Yeah. On that note, Pat, this is how I kind of see the fight. I see it fluctuating a lot. I see we're gonna have points where Perry and Paul are gonna entertain and they're gonna brawl, and then you're going to see points where Jake Paul, as you guys mentioned, having the boxing experience and the technical edge here, clinches up, does the hug fest, whatever you want to call it, and outworks him in the clinch there. And Jake Paul ultimately, because of course he does, ends up getting a decision victory. So
yeah, 100% agree with everything you guys said. Fighting bare knuckle and fighting boxing are definitely two different things. Even the way that you have to throw the punch is completely different. In bare knuckle, you have to be very, very careful on the way you throw punches. Because you don't want your knuckles to be susceptible to cuts as well. In boxing, it's completely different. So that's definitely going to favor Jake Paul. Jake Paul's definitely going to be the bigger fighter, so he has a better opportunity to get the knockout. But I would say, I'm not sure if you guys agree with this, but I would say, factor in their age and where they are in their career. I think Mike Perry is definitely a tougher matchup right now than Mike Tyson would have been. And I actually may be more excited for this matchup than the original one with Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I agree with the second part for sure. I don't know if it will be harder matchup. I'm not 100%.
I'm going to be more competitive. I had Jake Paul winning that fight by knockout in 3 rounds. If you go and look at how Evander Holyfield lost to Vitor Belfort in 1 round, we saw Vitor Belfort get knocked out 2 or 3 times at the later stages of his career. Now, I know he got back on the juice, but he made Evander Holyfield look bad, and Evander Holyfield has 2 wins over Mike Tyson, a no contest and then a win. But soundly beat him and knocked him out in the second fight. So, I didn't see this one going well for Mike Tyson, and I'm really glad that he got out of the matchup.
Well, we'll still see it later this year, November 16th. Just confirmed, by the way. I just had to double check. Yeah, it's not going to be on Netflix. Paul versus Perry is going to be on DAZN pay-per-view for the low price. Wait, for the low price, boys, of $64.99.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Low price.
That's
All right, let's get to the recaps.
Recap time. Woo.
Yeah. Okay, Robert Whittaker against Ikram Aliskerov. Whittaker getting his first finish since he knocked out Jacare Souza in 2017. We have gone 7 years without a Robert Whittaker knockout. We finally got one here. I mean, Ikram is young, and he took this fight on about a week's notice. So, there's no excuses, as he said. He mentioned in his own social media posts his own reaction the next day. But I mean, Robert Whittaker, guys, looked so good in there. Now, obviously, he's not going to get a title shot again right away, considering you still got Izzy and you got Strickland in front of him. But this is opening up the doors, guys. I call him, Red and Anthony, I call him the quadruple A fighter, because the only guys he loses to at middleweight are guys who end up becoming the champions. So, maybe if we're another fight or 2 away, guys, from Whittaker getting a Dustin Poirier-esque last chance at middleweight gold.
Very well could be coming up on that. I mean, he's been great. He really has. Other than the Dricus fight, he's looked great lately. Maybe not the same Robert Whittaker that he was, but he still looks good enough to me. And he very well could be knocking on the door of another title shot. I mean, I was having this conversation the other day, but Izzy's going to be next, presumably, right? Well, not presumably, they announced it now, but Izzy will be next, hopefully, I guess, because there could be a pullout, there could be issues. But then after that, you got Strickland and you got Whittaker. And when you want to go based off who had the more impressive performances, it's Whittaker. It's simply Whittaker. I mean, Strickland fought the same guy that Whittaker just did. Obviously beat him. Went down as a split decision. Obviously, everyone knows it wasn't a split decision. But Costa...
But I think the point is, Pat, is that, and we've talked about before, Strickland's track record outside of the upset of Izzy is not great.
It's not. It could be better. Exactly. I mean, the Imavov win has aged better than it was in the moment. But exactly, and I mean, in my opinion, if you compare the last 4 opponents from Whitaker and you compare the last 4 from Strickland, they're similar. But I I prefer to watch Sean Strickland's. Not Sean Strickland. Sorry, I prefer to watch Whitaker fight. The way he fights, the style, the potential finish. He could easily jump Sean Strickland for that shot.
I got a real easy solution here, guys. Why don't they just both fight? Yeah, I want to see
that would be easy, but you got Strickland saying no. I've paid my due. So
Sean Strickland saying he's paid his due. Robert Whitaker's a former champion as well. So that's the fight that I want to see as a fan. As far as the Robert Whitaker versus Alex Skarov fight was concerned, I want to get your guys' opinion. If you are a combat sambo world champion and you dedicated 18, 15 years of your life to one discipline, why are you not going to go take Robert Whitaker down at the opening bell? Why are you going to go in there and you get caught before you try and attempt a takedown? That the game planning to me, and I know you said that Ikram's young, and he is very talented. But that's like going in there and not using your best weapon. That's like bringing a knife to a gunfight, and you gotta at least try to put Whitaker on his ass, and so he doesn't do what he did. Did you guys?
It's like Sean Strickland. Sorry, but it's like Sean Strickland trying to outbox Alex Pereira.
Exactly, it's the same thing. And honestly, same result, first round knockout for both of them. So do you think that Ikram probably should have took it down earlier?
Yeah. But again, that's the inexperience and that's the short notice nature of the fight and just trying to leave an impression. Remember, that was only his 3rd UFC appearance.
Yeah.
So he's got a long ways to go. Co-main event, Alexander Volkov, Sergey Pavlovich. Guys, this one kind of I know we had the weird nature of this fight, how these two were close and were taken off guard by the announcement months ago. But, I mean, this fight wasn't great in my eyes, especially the performance from Pavlovich. This was kind of disappointing, and now this is back-to-back losses. He was so close to becoming an interim champion, and this is going to be a little bit of a trek back up for him now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But whoever wants to go from here.
Definitely. I think this is the biggest win of Alexander Volkov's, one of his career. I know that, he was challenging for Bellator titles, but, Alexander Volkov put on a masterclass in this one. You saw him grooming his hair in between rounds. He obviously knew how this fight was going to go based on previous sparring sessions. And honestly, it was really sad to me. I know I saw some edits online. I don't know if you guys did of him and Pavlovich playing checkers together in training camp in years past. And then, Pavlovich shoves him after the fight. I'm sure that, he lost a friend and it wasn't a great situation he wanted to be put in. We saw Merab and Aljo decline a fight for similar circumstances as well. I hope Sergey's all right. I hope that they can throw him into a good contest that he has a chance of winning again and he can get back up into contention. But Alexander Volkov over this stretch has looked fantastic. And this is the best he's looked in his entire career, in my opinion. I can't wait to see him fight again. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Definitely pulled off the upset. It's tough. The heavyweight division is a weird division. For the first time ever, we're seeing an interim belt be defended. We obviously going to have John Jones and Stipe. Most likely the winner of the John Jones-Stipe fight will probably fight Aspinall if Aspinall beats Blades. But, Volkov has put him on that short list of title contenders. I know Ciryl Gane's going to need an opponent in France later this year. I wouldn't mind seeing those two guys rematch, or even if they wanted to give Almeida the fight against Gane, and then maybe the winner of that could fight Volkov next. But I think right now Volkov's put himself in a nice position right at the top. And I think basically right now it's a wait and see on how this all shakes out in the division.
And as you said, so he's on a 4-fight winning streak coming off of this win here. The last time he was on a 4-fight winning streak in the UFC, he was in a title eliminator the next fight against Derek Lewis, which he was 11 seconds away from winning that fight. And he's done it against what I would consider, he fought good guys back then, but this is a higher level of competition that he's done it against right now. he's looked amazing. 3 finishes, the decision win with over a dominant guy in Sergey Pavlovich. I mean, Volkov has always been that kind of dark horse guy at heavyweight, but now we might be seeing the best of him. He's only 35 still. It feels like he's a lot older because he was the Bellator champ, been in the UFC for years. He's only 35, 4-fight winning streak, might have just picked up the biggest win of his career. Yeah, I'm sold on Volkov at this point. I think he's probably a top 5 heavyweight. What I want to see next, it's weird. He's already fought all the top guys. He fought Gane, Aspinall, Blades. He's fought Pavlovich now. He's fought all the top guys. I just don't know where he goes from here. That would be my biggest problem. My biggest question is, where does Volkov go from here?
Pat, unfortunately, I mean, I agree. I'm all for, Volkov right now, but this is going to be one of those scenarios where he's just going to have to sit on the sidelines and wait for the rest of the division to play out, basically.
Yeah. No, it's sadly true. I mean, he just has nowhere to go from this fight.
Speaking of big performances, the other big performance from Saudi Arabia, I think, has to go to Volkan Oezdemir. Oh my God, in no time did he knock out Johnny Walker. That was insanity. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So I mean, Volkan Oezdemir, I know he's had a rough patch ever since losing the title shot several years back, but it feels like with Volkan, I don't know. I even said it last week. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe not much on this little comeback trail, but I feel like a performance like this might have caused a few eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, sorry.
You got it, Pat.
No, okay. Yeah, no. Oezdemir, I mean, he did what people love to do to Johnny Walker, and it's knock him out in ridiculously funny ways. I mean, he just kind of continued the trend there. It's funny just to kind of see Johnny get knocked out in a brutal fashion again. I don't know where he goes from here, but Oezdemir, it's on a 2-fight finish streak over some solid guys. I mean, Johnny Walker's always dangerous. He was just fighting Ankalaev before this, who one of the top guys in the weight class. And then you got Oezdemir, who 2-fight winning streak. He's been through basically everyone in the weight class at this point, and he could end up rising as a contender potentially this year for Alex Pereira. That could be a fight that happens in the future down the line. I'm not sure how close he is necessarily, but he's kind of in the same spot that Volkov is in. They've been in the UFC a while, but now they're starting to string together some really impressive wins, and it's like, okay, is this potentially like the resurrection of their contendership status in their divisions? And I think it might be for both of them.
Yeah, Volkan doesn't always win, but when he does, he wins brutally. I mean, he's got one-shot power. We saw that when he knocked out Jimmy Mano in his first title run. And then this weekend, knocking out Johnny Walker. The thing for Johnny Walker to me is now he's been knocked out 7 times. And that's a staggering number, especially for a striker. And for someone who's 6'6", it's really kind of alarming to me that he lets these fighters get inside on him as much as he does. You'd think that he, with his long limbs and the reach advantage he comes in every single fight, that he'd have a jab or some type of range-finding technique to keep these guys off of him and his back off the cage. But routinely, we're sitting here seeing Jamal Hill back him up into the cage, Ankalaev back him up into the cage, and then now Volkan Oezdemir back him up into the cage and land big blows on him because he can't stop people from getting inside. It's really alarming to me. I don't know where Johnny Walker goes from here. I don't think he should come back very soon after getting knocked out in back-to-back fights. But Volkan Oezdemir is really coming on and having a late career resurgence, and I'm interested to see who he gets next.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Volkan. He came out there and he beat the 7th-ranked light heavyweight in the world. He did it in spectacular fashion. It's definitely warrants a top 5 contender, whether if that's, if he gets a Blachowicz or if he gets Jamal Hill when he's back, or even Alexander Rakic. But he's definitely going to get one of those top guys in the division. For Johnny Walker, it's tough to see. I really feel bad for him. It was tough to see what happened against Ankalaev. His nose basically got punched right off his face. And then for him to come right in this fight and to completely be knocked out cold, and it looked like he was twitching a little bit. And I was definitely concerned for his health. And we know with the signs of the human brain, the more times you get knocked out, the more susceptible you are to being knocked out. Your brain only allows yourself to be hurt so many times. And I think this is just going to be a recurring trend for Johnny Walker. I would like to honestly see him take the entire rest of 2024 off. And then maybe he could come back and be one of those guys that's in the light heavyweight division that's kind of like a gatekeeper. Maybe he'll start fighting these guys who are just on the up and coming, who are just outside the rankings. And maybe that'll be a little bit better for Johnny Walker to ease himself back in and maybe get him an easy win here and there.
Yeah.
I like the thought. All right, quickly, guys. PFL Salt Lake City. Mads Burnell pulling off a massive upset of Clay Collard in his hometown, in his hometown, no less, I should say. I'm starting to lose the ability to speak here. Just, guys, quickly, your thoughts on Mads Burnell pulling up the upset and basically ruining Collard's chances at the 1 seed.
Did what he needed to do to win. Wrestled. That's how you beat Clay Collard. You effectively wrestle and get him down and keep him there, and that's what Mads Burnell did.
It wasn't the most popular performances, but we saw this happen when he fought OAM. OAM did the same thing.
Yep, and guess what? It won them the fight, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Whether it's a popular performance or not, it was a big upset win for Mads. He needed to get back in the win column after his last fight, and it's good to see him, be adjusting the 155 a bit better now.
And, he honestly stood there and traded with Collard at times, too. I didn't think that his boxing looked bad. I think
he landed some overhand rights that
Yeah. They were going to war there in the pocket for a little bit, and then Mads drew him into a brawl and took him down. I thought it was a very technical performance from a grappling perspective for Mads Burnell. I thought his game plan was impeccable. That's like you said, that's exactly how you beat Clay Collard. We saw AJ McKee use a similar game plan, maybe a little bit more effectively, got him out of there with a first round sub, but Mads Burnell did exactly what he had to do. He put on a great fan-friendly fight while also fighting smart and winning. So, I thought it was a great performance by him.
Anthony, anything to add?
No, I basically agree with everything you said. Mads Burnell came in there with a game plan, and he was able to execute it. And he was able to come away with the win, and I was definitely very, very impressed with him. I'm definitely disappointed with Clay. We'll see how he rebounds from this.
Co-main event, I think, guys, we saw the finish of the weekend with everything that was going on, even more than the Whitaker knockout, the Volkan knockout. Impa Kasaganai finds himself in trouble late in the first against Jacob Neto, and then all of a sudden, Impa Kasaganai just pulling off the comeback victory, knocking him out. The bell did sound, so the fight was going into the third rounds, but the referee and the doctor basically saw Neto basically looking out on his feet. I don't know how the referee didn't step in when Neto was taking those last few shots with like 6 seconds left. He was out on his feet. He didn't know where he was. It didn't look like he had any consciousness. So, but the doctor had seen enough. Impa pulling off just an unbelievable victory. And guys, Impa Kasaganai just continues to have one of the greatest stories of modern MMA.
Well said. And I don't know, a horrible stoppage because there wasn't one. As simple as that. The stoppage was in between rounds. That was horrible. Neto was out. Neto was definitely out. There was no reason to continue that fight. Impa's a beast. I'm very interested to see how he does in this playoff that we'll talk about in a sec. But it was a scary moment in that first round. I thought he might have been out. I thought he might have got put out for a second, or if not, on the border. So something to watch out for in the playoffs. But yeah,
because Jacob Neto wasn't a pushover. This was a champ versus champ fight because Jacob Neto won the championship over in PFL Europe last year.
Yep. Yes, he did. Yeah, no, he's solid. It's just after his first PFL fight, Neto, his stock dropped a bit, and people slept on him coming into this fight with Impa. Got to remember that Impa really isn't a natural 205er. So when he fights these guys that can crack, he's susceptible to being put down.
Yeah, Jacob Neto's a big, strong kid. Like you said, he's got that championship pedigree coming over from Europe. I thought he fought really well in the first round. Like you said, Impa pulled off the comeback there. I didn't know if we had Steve Mazzagatti back in the cage refereeing or what was going on, but
no, Brett. We had Mario Yamasaki. Remember, he allowed him to be a warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he showed his heart. That's for sure. But Impa is a great story. He's taken on these guys, taken on all comers. champions like Jacob Netto, champions like Johnny Eblin. I really like Impa's game and can't wait to see him fight again.
Yeah, I love Kasanganay. The guy's very, very tough and gritty. He never gives up. Even in this loss against Johnny Eblin, until the end of the round, he was fighting and competed throughout the entire fight. So I love Kasanganay. He's not a guy that probably the casuals would know too very well, but honestly, I think he's one of the more impressive fighters in all of the MMA world.
Well said.
Well said. Guys, let's take a look very quickly. Lightweight, light heavyweight playoff brackets. On the lightweight side, because of the loss to... let me get that back here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, my phone acted up a little bit. Because of the loss to Mads Burnell, Clay Collard drops to the 4 seed. He'll be fighting the number 1 seed, the former Bellator champion, and Brent Primus. And on the other side, you have Gadzi Rabadanov taking on Michael Dufort. There is a chance, guys, considering how much Collard struggled against Burnell. I think there's a good chance Primus upsets him. Not upset, that's a 1-4, but I think people, will be rooting for Clay being a big PFL guy, one of the faces of the promotion. But I think Brent Primus is going to end up getting to the finals. The only thing is, if Rabadanov gets to the finals too, that could be a problem for Primus. And then on the light heavyweight side, you got Impa Kasanganay taking on Josh Silveira in one semifinal. That's a rematch of last year's championship fight. And then you've got Rob Wilkinson taking on Dovlitson Yagshimur. I can never pronounce his last name. Yagshimuradov. And if Dov ends up getting to the finals, that could be some problems for Impa. But considering this field, I know Rob Wilkinson was the 2022 champ and got suspended for 23, but I feel like with this field, if Impa just gets past Silveira and we get a 23-22 fight between Impa and Rob, I think Impa could win that. I think Impa could repeat there. Yeah,
no, I have to agree. Rob didn't look the best in his fight with Silveira. It was a very performance out of him. I think it was very underwhelming, and I think that I'd still have to favor Impa, even though he got dropped and everything. I think Impa overall in this bracket should win. Dovlet is obviously the big question mark. We don't really know what he'll be able to do, but I think Wilkinson should be able to deal with him, and then I think it will be Impa and Wilkinson in the championship for light heavyweight.
I got to tell you guys, I think Yagshimuradov is going to be a really tough out. And at lightweight, I really like Gadzi Rabadanov. When he went in that Bellator versus Ryzen card, last year on New Year's Eve, he beat Koji Takada, the champion over there. And that was a really tough and gritty fight. This is a guy who's very good on the ground. He trains with some of the best in the world. And I think he presents some problems to guys, especially Clay Collard, if he were to advance. Now, I think it's going to be Primus and Gadzi Rabadanov in the lightweight final, which is an absolute banger of a fight. Primus obviously has, the championship pedigree, and he's also very good on the ground and has slick submissions. I was really impressed with him in his last performance, but I think Gadzi is going to be the dark horse at lightweight, and I've got Yagshimuradov, maybe making some waves in the light heavyweight playoff bracket. Now, one last thing, guys, quickly before we get out of here, got to give a shout out to Ramazan Kuramagomedov, who ends up taking a decision over Jason Jackson, becomes the new Bellator welterweight champion, the main event of Bellator Dublin. Guys, Jason Jackson, I think, got to Ramazan way too late. It had been 3 rounds where Ramazan 2 rounds where he basically completely dominated him on the ground, and then 1 round where I think even Ramazan even outstruck him. So Jackson just started way too late, and unfortunately, I love the ass kicking machine, but he's got nobody to blame but himself on this loss.
Yeah, I sadly was not able to catch the first couple rounds of this fight, so I didn't see the rounds that Ramazan actually won, but I just heard that Jason Jackson just kind of let him win those rounds. He wasn't initiating grappling. He wasn't initiating striking how he normally would. I did see the 4th and 5th rounds that he won, but it's
not the Jason Jackson that we're used to.
And that's what I heard. I just heard it wasn't the Jason Jackson we were used to. So I'm going to have to go back and check that one out. But just disappointing because, Jackson was pretty hyped up coming into this fight. And, you know, maybe there will be an immediate rematch or something. Probably not, but he definitely loses a bunch of that hype with this fight. And Kuramagomedov rises a lot in people's eyes.
Yeah, I had Kuramagomedov as an underdog this weekend. You know, Jason Jackson wasn't the same fighter as we were used to, but neither were Jason Jackson's last two opponents. If you go and you watch, his last fight was against Ray Cooper. Ray Cooper is, you know, someone who was missing weight. He was not fighting at his natural weight. He hasn't really been in shape, you know, since he was able to knock out Magomed Karimov a few years ago. You know, he won that $1 million. He's kind of put on some weight since then. Now, in the other fight against Yaroslav Amosov, he had just come back from war in his first fight from war, and he looked nowhere near where we had seen him in his fights with Logan Storley and others. So, you know, I had a little bit of cause for concern for Jason Jackson coming into this one because he had beaten tough competitors, but I don't think he had beaten them quite at their best. And Ramazan Kuramagomedov is, in my opinion, one of the most talented fighters outside of the UFC. He's 27 years old, an absolute wrecking machine on the feet, knocks out Jalil Willis. He can submit you on the ground as well. And he can also, as we've seen, win and control rounds in majority of time in rounds, which is obviously something that leads to victory, you know, as a championship fighter when you're going 25 minutes. So I was really impressed with Kuramagomedov in this one. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. You know, as disappointing it is for Jason Jackson, the guy that we thought was probably one of, if not the best welterweight outside of the UFC. We didn't think anybody outside the UFC would even be able to give this guy a fight. But as disappointing as we are of him, we have to be equally as excited in Kuramagomedov. He's another, you know, exciting prospect who now has established himself as maybe the best welterweight outside the UFC. He's undefeated, and he showed that he's going to be a problem for years to come.
Absolutely. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the MMA Outsiders. One more time, though, I do want to promote for Brett and Anthony their show debuting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Woohoo!
It's Puncher's Chance. So a lot more MMA and boxing talk, a lot on the gambling front. So if you like Brett's bets, if you like some of the locks that, you know, Zain and I occasionally do here on the show, you're going to love Puncher's Chance. A lot more analysis, a lot more on the gambling front. I can't wait, guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us on today.
Of course.
Yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Onto the Bench Network. Subscribe, youtube.com/ETB Network. Help us continue our climb to 1,000 subscribers. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, shout out to our friends over at Playback for their sponsorship, as always. And don't forget to go to etbpodcast.com for great blogging content from Zain, Brett, and others. All right. For Pat Danna, for Brett Cagle, and Anthony Balester, I'm Tom Albano, and we will see you next time here on the MMA Outsiders for episode 90. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
See ya.